Hello.
Hello, how are we all doing?
How is everybody doing? Welcome back to the Summoned Realms Architecture and Video Game Podcast, everybody. Hope everybody's been doing very well. It's been a new year, and it's been a Christmas, hasn't it, Joe?
It has been a Christmas. It has been indeed a Christmas, Adrian. It's also been a New Year's. I hope everyone had a good Christmas and a good New Year's, and I hope it was full of fun and joy and everything that you want. But also, I hope it was relaxing and peaceful as well. Adrian, what did you get up to in your time of the joyful occasion?
Yeah, it was holly and jolly, absolutely. I think that was the aim this year for me, was definitely to do as much relaxation as possible, because I didn't really have any obligations in terms of like traveling to go see family or family coming to me this year. There wasn't any of that. And also, whenever I did see friends, it was like a very laid back, they come over to the flat or I go over to theirs. So it was definitely relaxing, and I chilled out to the max. But also, my girlfriend and we played a lot of Lego Voyages.
Nice. Okay. So, yeah.
It's nice to find a game where two people can sit together on the sofa and just like have a controller each and just play the game without.
Do you know what? That is something I do miss a lot, is being able to sit down with someone and, you know, like play games with them and stuff like that, because I used to do it quite often back in the day. No, it sounds like you had a really nice time though. I guess it's kind of one of those things as well where like sometimes not seeing family at Christmas and New Year's is kind of a bit of a blessing in disguise anyway, because it's kind of like you're on your, well, not on your own, but you know, you're at your own pace, you know, you don't have like things to do and stuff like that. So
it's like, it's the kind of thing where obviously it's really lovely to see family and things like that, but if you have a situation where everything's at your own pace, you can't beat it, you know, you can't beat it. So
well, as for me, it was all family. So Christmas it was family, New Year's it was family. I was actually ill on Christmas. I told you that, didn't I? Yeah, that fucking sucks. There was this massive super flu going around, and I managed to get it just before Christmas. So that was
so unlucky.
Fun, but I did enjoy myself regardless. But pushing 2025 away into 2026, I think it's quite interesting to start on a topic for this episode, and that is to do with AI.
Well, I think it's you know what, as you've opened that very aptly, is by saying, like, you know, we're rolling into 2026, 2025 is behind us. We have a lot to think of in terms of AI, because for a few reasons and a few ways. Is one, AI has been everywhere in the last year, and it's been so massively sort of like hyped by corporations or talked about by everybody at the pub or cafes or whatever. Everybody's talking about it. Everyone's finding ways of integrating it. Many people are against it, but also there's an insane amount of money hanging over it. And now that we're going into 2026, we've got this whole year ahead of us where we can say, okay, these are the improvements we've seen in AI. These are the things that people have criticized. What are we going to see next year? And also what we'll probably talk about at the end is what are our personal positions on it, because we're like creatives and artists when we produce this podcast, you know, and like we love to play video games and stuff, and we love to talk about architecture and things. And so you're going to get people come into our podcast and they're going to have differing opinions on the matter.
Absolutely.
And I think there's going to be so much pressure on us to explain where our position is and help the people, whether they're the people who are anti-AI or the people who are mega pro-AI, help them understand our position so they don't feel kind of like cheated by us or whatever, as long as we're straightforward about it. yo, did that weird blue guy just steal our QR code?
So AI has been absolutely mad for the last, like, I'd say, for the last, like, 10 years, I'd say. Even not even 10 years, I mean, 5 years ago, or, like, even 3 years ago. I mean, it's mad. Like, I remember first seeing AI kind of cropping up around, like, 2016 when I was in uni. And it was I think there was an app called Replica, and it was a AI that you could talk to, and it could be your partner and whatever and all that stuff. And I gave it a quick turn because I was like, you know what, I want to give it a quick go. And it was basic, but it was kind of getting there. And now I think it's like better than ever. But then even before that, I don't know if you remember the Evie, it was years ago, like 2010, 2011. There was this website you can go to. You can talk to a AI called like Evie or something like that, and she'd give you like very like basic replies and stuff like that. And she'd learn from what you spoke or what you typed in, and then she would end up, talking about like weird stuff and so on. But the thing is, like, I think what's crazy for me is how much AI has improved over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, when we discussed this before, like we were talking about the Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yes.
And how it was very weird. It was very like, it wasn't obviously, that well made by the AI, but now it's trained so much, and you've now got different models and different sorts of AI. You got Stable Diffusion and Muse and shit like that.
On that sort of subject, because that the Will Smith eating spaghetti thing is a perfect one, because when you think about the way which I was first introduced to kind of the image relevant thing with AI must have been about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was with DALL-E 2,
DALL-E,
which was around the same time as when Midjourney was coming out. And basically you could like go on this website, and for free you could type in an idea, and you'd get 9 like really quite hideous looking images of your idea.
And it was hilarious, because I remember.
And my favorite one was my favorite one of all time was I typed in Ronald McDonald colonoscopy, and it like put Ronald McDonald on this medical table, just like the weirdest, like just a weird contorted face. And then you think like, you start with that position, and now you get to a point where like AI video is, so that the Will Smith eating spaghetti one is going to look like a nightmare to most people, and they can see it's clearly not real. You put that at the start of that kind of scale 2 or 3 years ago, and in only 2 or 3 years, we have videos which are completely fooling people who have poor eyesight. Even not even poor eyesight. Sometimes it's just people who understand the kind of tropes with AI video and things like that. And it's such an evidence of just how far this technology is coming along, and an aspect of what scares people.
Well, you think about going back to like Will Smith eating spaghetti, and I think there was like ones with Brian O'Connell or whatever his name is or something like that. But like, you compare to what you can do now with Sora in recent days, and compare it to that famous Will Smith AI video. Like, and that was only like 3 years ago, something like that. And now you can literally like do something like that quickly, but really efficiently as well. And it's crazy how, I mean, like, I've shown you there's a website I use called Digen, and I've shown you the videos that I've done, like the weird PSAs and shit like that. And like, it's kind of terrifying how accurate it really is. Like, and how, like, if you were to, like, say for instance, I don't know, if I did like a public service announcement about people not to use cups or something like that, or bottles or some shit like that, and you showed that to someone who was elderly, or someone who just didn't know about AI or really was into like tech or anything, you could show them, you'd be like, yo, the British like government just came out with this PSA not to use any like ceramic glasses or shit like that. Do you know what I mean? And like, they probably would stand there and go, oh my god, like, that's crazy.
Well, on that subject, I've even had my own mum basically like ask me, is this AI? Just to be sure. And even then, like, my mum does something where she does these like surveys where like it won't be like looking at images and things,
Yeah.
but it'll be like receiving an email, and then she says to the survey thing, did this feel like a robot wrote it, or did it feel like a human? How did you feel about this? And it's giving my mum education like on how
Ooh,
AI
that's really
works, which
cool.
is like beyond what most people of her age
Yeah.
would get. And I think as you're saying here, and as we can go into the likes of like Gemini with Google, or we
Yeah.
could go into Sora, who I can't remember. Well, we got Grok
Nano
at the end. Who's Sora with?
Banana,
Nano
Stable
Banana, yeah. You know,
Diffusion. Yeah.
these are the. I mean, these are just like the image side. AI is obviously something which goes into so many different mediums and dimensions. I think that kind of gives people a general idea of what we're coming from. We will go into other forms of AI later down this podcast. But how about, I think, Joe, as we were kind of saying before we started, you had a very interesting historical parallel to talk about, which is also very relevant to the podcast anyway. How would you bring your equivalent thing that you found here into this?
Well, if we take a look at what happens, and by the way, for people who are listening to this, who are watching this, there are going to be things I'm going to mistake or get incorrect or anything like that. So, make
Just
a comment. Write a comment and kind of correct us, because I am going off from what I know. I haven't looked up anything. I know from what I've looked up in the past and, people I've spoken to. But back in like late 70s, late 70s, like possibly early 80s, maybe at the start of that decade. One of the things that happened was when video games were becoming really, really popular, and we're talking, when the Atari 2600 came out, the ColecoVision, the Intellivision, a lot of those kind of first generation consoles that were coming to people's homes and whatever, there was this massive, massive surge of companies wanting to create games for like the Atari 2600 and stuff like that. And the market got so saturated with bad games and, poorly made games and just like bad feedback in general. There was a couple of consoles that weren't great and stuff like that. It basically caused the video game market to crash. And that's where the whole entire legacy of like where Nintendo came out of the rubble and then like made like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. And then you had, like Sega coming out with a Master System and, all that stuff, like all those really cool stories. But the thing is, what I'm trying to compare is the fact that we, in the last, I'd say 5 years, definitely, especially this decade, we've seen, like, a massive rise in different companies, different AI, different, software that uses AI. We're talking stuff like therapy. We're talking stuff like, virtual girlfriends and boyfriends or partners. We're talking, like, even, like, where we do our work, Notion, where we do our stuff for the podcast. Notion has an AI element to it, which you can use. Gemini, that's really good at making videos and images. And I mean, even the overlay that we will have on this episode, some of that has been made by AI, because I was the one that was creating it, trying to get some nice textures and stuff. So I can't really say I hate it, because I do like it at the same time. But what I'm trying to say is you've got this problem where, like, the market is being so saturated with all these different models, all these different types of AI, some of them really good, some of them really fucking bad, that it could, I'm not saying it will because it's just clutching at straws here, but it could potentially crash the market. And we could see stuff just fall under, I don't know what could happen, but it's very similar in the way that the video game market crashed in that era.
And this is what I wanted to bring up on this thing, because I when we talked about it before the podcast, you brought up that element in history of the actual video game market bubble and market crash. And it also has echoes similar with the .com bubble and the .com crash.
Yes, absolutely.
And the point that I tend to bring up with these kinds of things, Joe, is I tend to say to people, like, people will go, oh, AI is in a bubble. Microsoft just spent 100 billion here. OpenAI spent 100 billion here. Like, oh, they broke their promise. They turned themselves into a private company. Oh, there's all these like trillions of dollars being projected. Oh, it's all going to fall. It's all going to crash. And they talk about it as if like that means that AI is faulty, or AI is a fad, or
Yeah.
AI is going to be given up on. When in reality, the dot-com bubble happened. There was a massive bubble and crash with like companies that were setting up these websites.
Mm-hmm.
Did we stop using .com addresses?
No.
Did we stop using websites? No. Same with video games. There was a huge like crash, but as you were kind of saying with the various anecdotes you brought up, is from the ashes rise phoenixes. And I think my general view on this is you're going to have these people who are spending insane amounts of money on AI technology and trying to shoehorn it in into, pardon me, kind of integrate it and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's not about who can make the most money from selling consumer side ChatGPT, Claude, Sora, Gemini services. It's about who can create the superior model for AI, or even reach the fabled AGI, and then have that sort of dominance over the artificial intelligence technology in how.
Well, this is what I think is going. Yeah, this is what I think is going to happen. It's like we could see an AI crash. We could, like, it could happen. I mean, we've already got reports of like how much water there is being consumed because they're trying to keep the, like the the hardware they're using for AI to keep it like cooled and whatever. And apparently, like last year in 2025, like we used a shit ton of water to keep these systems going. And the thing is with that is we're gonna see problems where, if not a video game market crash, but an AI market crash does happen, who is going to be the one to rise from those ashes? Because it's one of those things where it's like, who's got the most money? Do you know what I mean? Like Nintendo, like if we go back to the video game market crash, like Nintendo were making Pong consoles before like the NES came out, and they came out with the NES, and then they came out Final Fantasy, which was then a revival of the video game market. But with AI, it's a bit more like open-ended, if you know what I mean. Like it's kind of like it's not there's not going to be one significant company that could come out from it. It could be multiple. It could be fucking none. You don't know. But what's scary is the fact that AI is literally fucking everywhere. Like wherever you go, it is everywhere. And I don't really personally have a huge problem with it. But what I do have a problem with is how far is this going to go before the dominoes start falling? That's my kind of question.
I mean, and to what you were saying there is that it's harder to see, isn't it? Because we don't have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
We don't have the benefit of like what we do with the video game industry crash, where we can go, oh, those were the companies who didn't give up, or those were the companies who had like enough money to hibernate on when everything crashed, or those were the companies that actually knew what they were doing or had something clever and interesting going on. We don't have that kind of hindsight here. All we really have is, the closest I can think is these people who are doing like, and it's not even that good of an indicator economically, but people who do these like benchmark tests, where they set these tests for like various AI programs. Like, you always see like every week or so, like Musk will tweet out, wow, look, Grok has been the highest performing one in this benchmark. And then like the next week it'll be like, remember when like DeepSeek came out of China, and it's like, whoa, DeepSeek's breaking the benchmarks. And then I don't know, a week or two later, it'll be like, oh, Google has, Google Bard or Gemini or whatever has done that thing, and it's like,
well, it's interesting.
We're just looking at something.
Because there are websites you can go onto now where you can actually compare different AIs together. And you can give them like a task, like, make me a source code for like a small Flash game or something like that, or a small internet-based game. And the AIs will race against each other to, actually see who comes out faster. But not only that, but who brings out the more efficient code or software and whatever. Like there's a couple of channels I actually watch on YouTube, not the one that we were talking about just now, but there are like a couple of channels that I watch where they will ask, I don't know, like Gemini to make a Fortnite clone, and then they'll give the same, command to I don't know, like ChatGPT or Nano Banana or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like any other AI that allows you to do that. And it's interesting to see which ones are better than the other. But it's quite interesting as well because I think, what is it? I think it's Gemini. I think Gemini's really fucking good. Like, absolutely fantastic at, like, doing what you ask it to do. Like, there was a guy, the same guy that I watched, he asked Gemini to make Mario Kart, basically. And it wasn't particularly amazing or anything, but it got the basic fundamentals down of what Mario Kart was, and it actually ran really well. So it's one of those things where, like, we could also use, like, AI like that to potentially promote even, like, young kids or, like, teenagers or whatever in learning about software or programming or, you know, AI and whatever. Because it could work out really well. It's just we got to maintain it, I believe.
It's a good point as where, like, you could use AI as a bridge to take you into places that are actually fairly complex, and you shouldn't feel that you need to spend like 100 hours learning how to code or learning how to use Unity or Unreal before you actually achieve, you know, a semblance or a prototype of that game that you're trying to make. Is a very good point, because then also it would be inevitable that as people are using these AI programs to help them reach like a prototype for a game that they like, they'll start realizing, oh, I need to do some more vibe coding to change that aspect of the gravity or the simulation or the particle effects or like the menu system or something. But, you know, going from that, we could probably talk about what has changed for us in terms of our workflows and our daily lives with AI since we've got it. But also, as you were talking about before the podcast, it's like, how has socializing sort of changed?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we'll go on the whole entire topic first of, you know, how it changes our day and whatnot. I mean, for me personally, like, I, like with the overlay that we got on our podcast, I generated some textures from Gemini and also generated some bump maps for those textures to give it definition and detail, and it worked really, really well, and I'm really happy with that. But also with like my line of work, well, a side hustle I guess you could say, or my volunteering work for the GTA mod I'm working on, I've also used AI to come up with ideas for like props and stuff like that when I'm at a bit of like a creative block, or I don't know, like coming up with like really funny GTA related sort of names for like places to go to, or like a shop or like a restaurant or something like that, or come up with like a really funny slogan or something, which is really cool because sometimes it is difficult to come up with something that is kind of like what you're trying to work on. But for me, like, I do try and maintain myself on AI, not to little, but like not use it as often, if that makes sense. Like, I'll use like ChatGPT or Gemini to look through, I don't know, like a PlayStation 2 magazine or something like that, or like a Nintendo Power magazine. And because obviously I don't know much about Nintendo Power. For an example, I put from like the web archive, I put it into like Gemini and be like, could you search for this magazine and, you know, potentially show me any games that were cancelled or software that was cancelled or prototypes that were never like made properly. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And it does do it really, really well. And I really enjoy that sort of stuff because then it kind of like puts it all into like a perspective, and then you can easily look at it through easy notes and annotations on like something like ChatGPT or Gemini.
Yeah.
With terms of like anything else, like I mean, I generate like images and videos for fun. I mean, we could probably post in between this while we're talking. We could probably post something like one of the public service announcements I made for like Sora. You know, like I could,
but also like to be more relevant as well is remember the one that you made of the Notre Dame, like in
literally, like
game.
It's really fucking cool because like with like Sora, for instance, you can see how things are different depending on like what setting they're in or what genre. Like for instance, like for an easy one, let's go with, I don't know, like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, right? You could do stuff like, what would the Eiffel Tower be like if you were playing an RTS game, or like a Civ builder, or if there was like a first-person shooter based around a mission where you're at the Eiffel Tower or something like that, right? Because I did a generation on Sora of Notre Dame, but it's an FPS game, and it was interesting. It was quite funky because it got it right to a degree, but I think there's one part of it. I don't know if we'll put it in the episode, but there's one part of it where it goes through the bell tower and it comes back around, and then there's another bell tower. So it's kind of like, it's kind of got it, but it kind of doesn't. But this is the thing, and this is what I love about, Sora and like the text to video or text to image generators that you got, is that the funkiness, like how it tries to make it realistic as possible, but in reality, like, it's nothing like that at all. And I fucking love that shit. So in terms of how I use AI, like on a daily basis, I don't really use it on a daily basis unless I need it. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm using it for like fun. But besides that, I don't use it all the time. But isn't it different for you, Adrian? Or
Yeah, I would say it is slightly different. I would say I do actually find myself using AI on a daily basis. And it's basically, I have ChatGPT on my phone and I use it for usually quite casual things, but once in a while I'll use it for things which are quite critical. So, for instance, if I'm just having a discussion with someone, and I'm quite on the tip of my tongue for being able to prove something or remembering the name of something, I will just open up ChatGPT and ask for whatever it's kind of like, whatever its answer is to something. There's also aspects of where, like, if I want to cook a certain thing, or I've not got ideas for the set of ingredients I've got, then ChatGPT will suggest some things like that. Sometimes I'll just if I've got a concept or idea going through my head, then I'll just get it to clarify that. But then that's also, for instance, with Summoned Realms, there's a dedicated ChatGPT account for that, where from whether it's things like editing in Premiere Pro, or it's like getting search engine optimization keywords, or getting a view on a title, or something like an idea for a thumbnail. Things also how to just anything that could help with our channel. I use that as a sort of a vehicle, and I treat it as if we've got this sort of personal assistant, And
I think that's the best way to use it, though, isn't it? Is kind of use it as a personal assistant, because to butt in quickly, for me, I've used it for the Beta Hunt channel, which is linked in the channel, for things about the difference between the prototype and the final release of a game that I've been researching. I've used it quite a few times, actually, to kind of quickly make a quick program for something that I'm using in a game or something like that. So for instance, for the wrestling fans out there, I have a massive universe mode that I've been playing for years on 2K19, and I haven't used it in a while, but I came up with a thing where it would determine if one of the opponents would get an injury and how long they'd be out for. So then it changes the storylines and stuff like that. But then also I've also actually, speaking of though, I actually have used it at work a few times, especially ChatGPT. So I work in retail, right? And I work at a homeware department store. And I actually used it a few times where someone who's quite old, who's come in with something ancient, right? We're talking something in a tap or something like that. And they're like, well, we don't have it in our store, but I can do something for you. And typically what I do is I'll take a picture of it, ask ChatGPT what this is and where you can find it, and then it will literally link you to places where, and it is so smart, but then it's kind of scary how it can kind of seep into the real life world like that too.
Well, on that I was going to say, because one of the critical things which I use it for is I use it sometimes for diagnosing or giving me a second opinion on medical issues, in the sense that sometimes I'll get symptoms for things, but I'll explain those symptoms to GPT, but then what I'll do is I'll try to treat it conversationally, and I'll give it a sort of a round perspective, and kind of go back and kind of interrogate on certain things, and I don't take it 100% gospel on stuff. And I always just make it clear where something is not happening as well, just to make sure it stays rounded. But at the end of the day, it's like sometimes you're kind of pressured into these positions, like in the countries that we live in, because like things like GP visits and stuff like that are getting harder and harder, and sometimes you can trust less. Like their reputation for just giving you painkillers and walking away has become worse and worse. So it's kind of like, you're using this thing which has so much information in its model, in its brain, as it
when
were.
ChatGPT literally turns around and goes, "You're gonna die in 2 days, mate."
Well, that's the thing, is like even sometimes it does say like, this is an emergency, and I have trusted it, and I've gone to like A&E like by myself to just to be like, what, I can see why it would think this. I'd better be careful. But then on the other hand, I've had it say that things are like benign, and it started off by saying it's an emergency, and then it said like, oh well, now you've given me further information, do this test and let me know, and if this comes out the way, then it's not what I thought it was, and it is benign. And so like it does give like interesting perspective, because you don't have like an expert GP or doctor like just immediately for your use for free and things like that. And so like I would probably say that like from that aspect, we've talked of many different ways we've used it, and also not just the text thing, but as you said, for like texture generation. I've even seen like, because I've been learning Blender so that I can help with like the kind of graphic campaign for this channel. And then it's interesting because I was on this course, and yet I was still being told about this website called Meshy.ai, where you can type in your idea and it'll make a 3D.
Yes, I have heard. I have heard of that. I think you even told me, I believe, like a while ago. But like, no, I've seen that as well. Because like, actually, speaking of the channel that I was talking about, where like he asked like ChatGPT or Gemini to make like Mario Kart or like Fortnite or whatever, he actually got a bunch of models from that website you're talking about, and then he actually asked ChatGPT or Gemini to insert those models into the game that it is creating and use it, but like an enemy or like a gun or I don't know, like a prop or something, like a tree or like a crate or some shit like that. And it's really fucking cool. It's just, there's a lot of people that talk about how like AI is going to take over a lot of like jobs and stuff like that. And to a degree, I kind of understand why they would worry about it. But it's like, so say for instance, like where I work, like a lot of people don't like to use a self-service checkout because they don't want to use it because it's AI or whatever. But it's kind of like, you still need people there to maintain those self-service checkouts, or it, like, I don't know, like even in like, I don't know, like game development, you still need a physical person there to develop stuff, because I'm going to be honest with you, like AI is good at the moment and it's fantastic, but it can't fully replicate what an actual human can do. And that's where people kind of need to kind of chill out a little bit, because I can tell you right now, like AI isn't going to take over. If anything, it's gonna stay at a steady pace, but it won't take over, like, at all.
Going from that, because that's quite a bold claim, kind of saying like it won't take over, I think this is a really good way of us kind of segueing into what we've seen in the news in terms of its potential to take over, but also what we understand, like the state of play. Because what I would probably say is, like, before we get into some of our like more news related things, which you found from like Kotaku and things like that, is basically there's this there's this subreddit. I definitely think I've told you about it before. It's called Free Media Heck Yeah. And it's and it's a repository for like any kind of like freely accessible program, software, just like code, streaming websites, whatever it might be. And there is a whole area that was put into it, I don't know how many years ago, but it's a whole area for AI. Now, the thing is that when everybody thinks of AI, or when most people think of AI, they just think of like GPT, like ChatGPT, they think of Google Gemini, they think of Microsoft, they think of all these mega corporations. But the fact of the matter is that there's this whole other story to AI, and it's kind of like this underground open source thing. And it's a bit like when you showed me like how to install Stable Diffusion. There's a whole set of like very talented, creative, interesting people out there who are more than willing to like build things and put them up on open source, like places like GitHub, and give people access to free offline versions of AI software alongside the data eating ones like GPT and stuff. And even if I just scroll through like free media, heck yeah, you've got all these different categories of like official model websites like Grok and stuff. You've got sites which allow you to access multiple models at once, like the video one which you were talking about before. You've got chatbots with like specialisms. You've got like local AI front end things for your desktop. You've got like self-hosting tools where you can just like with Stable Diffusion, you run it for yourself. And you've got coding AIs, which can be done off and online. And you've got like so many different things that apply to things like jailbreaking, or there's just so much here. And you can think that like when people are scared that like AI is going to take all the jobs or whatever, on the other hand, if you're someone who's getting in early on the ground floor and working out how can I build AI software and resources independently, understand how it runs, can I be the person who comes in and like gives people services using AI so that I can like keep making money and have a business running, or just anything like that without having to rely on either these mega corporations or like rely on this like employer who's going to fire me, you know?
It's one of those things as well where like, even though that I would say that AI won't take over, I think what needs to be done, and I think what needs to kind of like be talked about more, is how we're going to maintain AI and stuff. Because I mean, like we were discussing before the podcast episode, we were talking about how like socializing has become very, very different now on like in terms of like now AI being introduced. I mean, like when we at the beginning of the episode, I was talking about Replica and how you can talk to someone, you can actually like virtually date them and whatever. But like with like I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and I saw like there's an AI that, you know, gives you the therapy that you wouldn't be able to get from an actual therapist and whatever. And then you've got there's been a big one recently that's been coming out as of late, and it's like Instagram, but all it is just AI.
Whoa.
Yeah, so like there's even like now social media platforms where it's just you and you're the only human and you're like scrolling through like, you know, an Instagram like platform.
So it's like, so it looks like Instagram, but every other account
It's similar
is actually
to
AI
it's similar to Instagram, but it's one of those things where it's like it's just AI and you're the only human and whatever, and then you like to scroll through and you look through like profiles and channels and stuff like that, and it's kind of it's for me it's interesting but a bit worrying because, you know, you get a lot of people who are quite introverted and then they get like, you know, not, I wouldn't say addicted or whatever, but then, you know, if they have like an AI who they're talking to and this AI like starts like talking to them about like, you know, their problems and stuff like that and how they could resolve them, and you know, like then they could get attached to that sort of, you know, that AI. I mean, even South Park did an episode on ChatGPT where Randy got fucking addicted to using ChatGPT for his weed business. And it actually ended up like what ChatGPT was doing was actually destroying his business. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, when is there going to be like a stop on it? Or when is it going to get to the point where like where we got to maintain it or like actually, you know, regulate it or something like that?
Well, and again, this goes back to something which I kind of see, which is kind of my opinion or just my observation, is that like a lot of these issues which people say like come from AI, they don't realize actually like when AI wasn't there, these same issues happened like between other people. So artificial intelligence, like AI is artificial intelligence. It looks like it's an intelligent thing which you're conversing with, but you're not. You're conversing with something which analyzes patterns, takes aggregates of data, and then gives you back what it thinks you're likely asking about. So that means that like it can be wrong, and guess who else can be wrong? Human beings.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
So as you said with that South Park episode with Randy sort of being like, you know, or you know, trusted ChatGPT and it killed the business. It's like, so there's so many instances in real life of like someone giving someone advice and that advice being terrible. And what I find annoying is that there's this double standard with AI where people think that like AI should only ever be correct, or it shouldn't lead someone a certain way, or like we need to like regulate or whatever
Yeah.
for that. And sometimes it sets a different standard over what somebody should obviously not trust fully. And it's like, so like, it's like how would I say it? It's sort of like when you go on the B board on 4chan, like when you're younger, like as a young lad, and it says at the top of the website, like everything. It says something like everything here is a matter of fiction and falsehood.
Yeah,
Only a
yeah, yeah,
fool
yeah,
would
yeah.
trust anything here. And it's like, if people need to understand that these AI models and things, they're just giving you an approximation of what the thing is. And if it's your children who are vulnerable, or like, people who are vulnerable, it's like you've either got to educate them properly so they understand what's going on, or you've got to like maybe only certain
do you know
people
what?
shouldn't
Actually,
access
now
it,
just thinking about it, I remember we were talking about. I don't know if it was the last episode we were talking about it, but remember I was speaking about the when that lady in my local town started a petition to stop violence in video games and stuff like that. And I remember and actually thinking of that, and this is why I like doing this sort of stuff, and not heavily debating, but like kind of discussing this, because I have kind of contradicted myself a little bit, and I'm actually kind of happy I have, because I even said to the lady, I even said to her when she started this petition, I even said to her, I was there like, well, you need to educate your children on that what's happening in video games isn't real, and it's in your interest to not put your kids, through that sort of shit where like they are playing a violent video. If you're scared of your kid like replicating what's happening in a video game, don't let them play that video game. Like, it's in your interest, your personal interest, to make sure that what they're doing isn't going to be replicated. And that's the thing. Like, the thing is, but then this is another question. Like, can it be regulated? Because I don't think it really can, because of how big it's become. Can we actually regulate it now?
Now, that's a good question, because going back to something we were kind of saying earlier, is that AI, like when people say AI, a lot of them think it's ChatGPT, but no, AI is like AI is some like deeply scientific thing that is not just defined by a large language model like ChatGPT. It's defined by like a phenomena of like a self-learning thing. And so, as an example of this, what you say about can it even be stopped is like, yes, you might be able to like ban people accessing GPT if they're a certain age or whatever. But on the other hand, is like we've had in America recently, there was some kind of law which was passed by Congress or something like that, or Donald Trump led it with an executive order. I can't remember, but it was this general thing that the states of America, the separate states, they cannot make certain regulations and rulings on how AI can be used. And that's basically saying like the federal government is drawing the agenda on how AI is used. And that's not because the federal government wants to decide how old you have to be to use ChatGPT or whether you can trust it for medical questions. It's not. It's to do with the fact that AI as a phenomenon of intelligence is so deeply rooted in things like government authority and government surveillance, or military weaponry and things like that, that that it's not going to be the kind of thing that will just be stopped, because it has so much potential to perform for the needs of extremely powerful companies or people and things like that. And it's too, like, the fact that we can, as we were saying, like the fact that we could just like take a month's holiday and just download every AI software and app we could in order to produce like the most like glitzy, glamorous looking podcast. Like that's the kind of things where for the majority of human history we would have had to hire artists, hire coders, hire personal assistants, things like that. And by the way, we'll get into later how we're not planning on shilling AI to everything, like we understand like the implications, but that's just the hypothetical. And in fact, that kind of rolls into, you were talking about the on the Game Rant article, which you found about the price increase with NVIDIA products and things like that, because it again rolls into that AI is such an important infrastructure thing for governments and companies
Yeah.
that it's using all of this water to cool down the actual like the operating hardware that gets hot, and it's massively ramping up the prices of things like RAM and things like that, because people like governments and things and corporations are just trying to absorb as much electronic digital power, processing power, to be able to do AI and beat everybody else. So it would be good if you could go over the I do have the article here as well. I don't know if you have it too.
Well, I put it. Funny enough, I actually put it through Gemini just to put out some key points. So let's see, whereabouts is it? Okay, so basically the RTX 5090, which originally launched at a retail price of basically $2,000 in dollars, could see a price soar as high as $5,000, which is a lot for a graphics card. And obviously on top of that, you've got the memory apocalypse as well, the shortage of VRAM and all that stuff. And there's this kind of little topic here where it's like AI demand versus gaming supply. And that's the thing. And I remember we were discussing about those independent computer shops where they make your PCs or they repair your PCs and stuff like that. We could see a lot of those small time businesses actually go under because of what's happening right now with hardware becoming so hard to come across because of the price hikes, which is really, it's scary, but then it's also kind of well, this is how it's going to be, I suppose, because it's just, if there's been a lot of push and a lot of development on AI, and AI is being used in a lot of places and a lot of tech and a lot of software, then there is going to be increases in price for hardware and stuff like that, because companies need it. They demand it, basically. But for me, I think what is scary is that this could also mean that building a PC with really decent hardware could be more of a luxury than anything else. Not a thing that you want to do for your pastime, but actually it will be now a luxury, because if the prices do get increased, it's going to be harder for people who want to build a PC to actually build a PC. But then also it could mean that companies like PC Specialists, like this PC here that I've got is from PC Specialists, maybe they could see an increase in consumers for their products because they'll be going to PC Specialists or whatnot, or Novatech or whatever, and then buying a PC through credit or through a credit card or through installments of payments, which is what has happened with this PC that I've got. So I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one for me, because I'm worried that price hikes are gonna cause a lot of problems, but then also at the same time, it's one of those kind of things where it's really interesting to see how this is going to go.
It's just so interesting, because it also makes you think if what happens is, if the majority of people can't afford to get a good graphics card to just run top quality games and top quality things on their own, and more of the actual graphics cards and RAM is sold off to these major corporations and things like that, doesn't that just lend themselves to kind of have no choice but to offer cloud gaming services?
Well, then that is the thing.
Because if you can't afford the RTX 5090 and there's no way you're going to get anything that good for years, and even things I think mine is let me just double check what mine is, because I bought mine maybe 3 or 4 years ago, my graphics card. It was a really good one at the time. It's a let's have a look here. Drum roll, please. It's a NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 Ti, which was very good at the time. But it's if even those start to get bought out, and because people are just looking for ones that are good enough to do things like Elden Ring and Ultra or whatever, does that just mean that you're going to have no choice to play your games? Unless we could
see a surge,
and then they have to upgrade the cloud services.
We
and they
could
have to make
see
sure
a
surge
in cloud-based gaming. I mean, we've had multiple times in the last 2 decades, or I'd say decade and a half or so, where there has been people trying to do companies trying to do cloud-based gaming. I remember one of the ones that was gonna kill the video game industry was OnLive. And that was and OnLive like only lasted like I don't even think it lasted that long, but like people were, even back when I was younger, I was worried that, you know, like everything was going to go to OnLive or cloud gaming, and I wouldn't be able to like play my games on my 360 or my PS3 or something like that. And it's one of those things where, with what's going on right now, we could see like a huge like ramp in just like you said, cloud gaming, and it could give people an easier access to that gaming, because I could imagine what they would probably do is they probably would like have a, probably not a cheap subscription, but probably a decent subscription where it gives you access to loads and loads of different, you know, like games on, you know, on a cloud. So I don't know, it's weird.
I just want to say something, because what you like, this is where you kind of take the steps even further, right? Is because there was something which Elon Musk said where I think he was saying like by the end of 2026 he expects that the Grok team will have built a video game, like an impressive first-person shooter video game that runs by like AI. And so what would happen is, like, as you're kind of saying this, like, let's say this is the actual time where people move to cloud gaming, like, instead of like the failures like OnLive and like, I don't know, Google Stadia or whatever it was, then what happens if, you know, you conveniently can't afford a proper graphics card and proper RAM, so you're conveniently here on our service for like cloud gaming. So how about you try out these AI games that we made? And then what if it gets to a point where, like what you were saying with like the AI girlfriends and boyfriends thing and people not really interacting in the real world, what if the whole way we talk about video games changes forever? Like, instead of saying, oh, I played, let's say, you know, Dishonored 3 or something, or I played, you know, Elden Ring 2 or whatever. What if it becomes like, oh, have you been using the, let's just make up a model, like, have you been using like the like AI Game Plus model? Because the AI Game Plus model, oh, it produced this incredible game where like I was playing a PS1 game set in like the conquistador era of like, you know, Latin America, and then you're talking to somebody else, and there is no possible way in hell they've played that game.
Yeah, well, this is the thing,
because
and
they
this
wouldn't
is
even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and as someone who is in the games, technically in the games industry, it excites me because I've already seen in the past, like Muha from Ordinary Gamer, some Ordinary Gamers. He actually did a video on an AI that reproduced or produced a Counter-Strike Global Offensive map. And it was like, it was really early at the time, so like it was only like 10 FPS or some shit like that. But it literally was, you were able to run through like Dust 2, the map Dust 2. But what was really cool about it was like, and this is what I was talking to you before, is, you know, like it didn't get everything right. And that's why, actually, no, we was just discussing about it now, weren't we, about the notch down and everything. And this is what I love about it, is like it doesn't get things 100% accurate, and I love that sort of shit, because for me, like that's just funny and it's really cool. But then also I have been noticing that I even sent you a screenshot the other day on WhatsApp of that AI that's been promoted, where it's like, oh, you can just generate a game from like a prompt that you just type in, which is pretty fucking sick. But then what does this then mean for, like, if like we're talking about, you know, like AI and, you know, producing games through AI and stuff like that, what does that mean for the games industry?
Well, I mean, you know, what that kind of, you made me think about something while you were talking about that, and then it also could lead on to that question, is the way that I see AI art as it is now, or even like AI writing, pretty much anything that's produced by AI which in some way tries to touch creativity, I see it as a genre. So for instance, it's like the AI videos which like you've been practicing making, or you see on Instagram or places all the time. It's like people will make like AI things of like a famous person like JD Vance ending up in like a weird situation, you know, like presenting a North Korean TV show, or they'll make like this beautiful video of like an Asian woman playing the violin while she's walking along a skyscraper with like, you know, the planets behind her and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think AI art and AI creativity is a genre of art, because different art forms or different genres of like shows and things, or a different medium, it just has to be treated with its strengths and weaknesses. Like, for instance, if you look at like the certain paintings which have an effect on you, like I guess like impressionism, where like when you first look at a painting, you might think there's like a really great like portrait of someone like in the corner in a scene, but
Yeah.
if you walk right up to the canvas, actually it's barely a face. It's just that your brain tricks you into thinking it's a face. And that was like a form of this art, was that it's able to like the advantage is that it can make it feel really wistful and free, because it's like just a beautifully interpretive painting. But the disadvantage is that it's not a photograph, it's not hyper realistic. AI has a thing where it's like, the advantage is that things can look hyper realistic and they can look super fluid and super amazing, like those adverts which you made which just look like real people in like very dramatic cinematography. But the disadvantage is that there's always something to these videos which prove that it's just a little bit broken, and just a little bit like, I can tell this isn't real, or clearly the person who made this can't control the fact that, like, you know what you said with the bell towers? It's like you made that video by typing it into the AI, or the AI model made it, whatever you want to say. But the fact of the matter is that neither you nor the model could control the fact that you would not have like a scene where you walk into a bell tower and then you turn around and there's another bell tower and some stairs going to nowhere, and like, so that's just, I think that's what I think, if people come to accept that, both the people who request the AI art and the people who make the AI art, if everybody comes to accept that the advantage of the AI art is this and the disadvantage is this, and if you actually want something which doesn't fall for those issues, like too many fingers or just looks fake or whatever, go get a real artist to make something real.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
That's
And
what I
that's
say.
the thing as well, is like, I see a lot of like posts on Facebook of people that I'm not even following, or just like posts in general, YouTube, well, fuck it, any social media platform. And I see a lot of people going like, yeah, we gotta stop AI, it's taking everything. And it's like, yeah, it's not though, because like the thing is, like we were just talking about, AI isn't gonna get everything 100% accurate. I mean, you could like put in a prompt in on like Stable Diffusion and have like a shit ton of prompts and like checkpoints and whatever. Like, remember when we were fucking around with like Stable Diffusion when I first installed it on your PC? Like, we were fucking around with it, and then I came back the next week and you were like, yo, I've just found all these checkpoints and these models and stuff. But the thing is, like, no matter how much you use it, it's still gonna get things wrong. Like, absolutely. And that's the thing that people need to kind of understand, is like, it's not going to like take away a lot of the human interaction that we have. It's just, it's in your own, I guess, perspective, or your own kind of like way of understanding if it's AI or not, or if you want to use AI or a real person. And a lot of people who want art or whatever will probably go to a real person anyway. So it's just one of those things where at the moment, like, it's so like hot and cold on what is right and what is wrong. It's so open-ended.
Yeah, I think, talking of that, I think this is probably, I mean, we didn't actually cover everything that we could have covered, but I think that's probably a decent place to kind of like start coming to a bit of a conclusion, would you say? Or was there anything else you kind of wanted to...
I would say that the only thing I think to discuss really is, what are we going to be seeing in the next few years? Because,
yeah,
like I said before at the start of this episode, like, we saw like, the Will Smith video, and then like comparing it to like now and how like realistic it looks. What are we going to see in the next couple of years? Like, we could see it so that even maybe virtual reality might be a thing where like you generate something through like a model, and then you can use your, I don't know, your virtual headset to then go into that game and see what it's like and whatnot. Like, it would be really cool to see that. And we're probably going to see more improvements on like videos and stuff like that. Like, people around the clock are always like developing like updates and like developing better models to use and stuff like that. And like I said before, it's only been a couple of years since that Will Smith video got released, and now look at it now. Like, what a development! What a fucking what a development! Like, only a couple of years, like it's improved massively, and that's insane.
It's really intimidating, like how much it's improved. Really,
Yeah.
if you compared the ability of, let's say, someone to like draw comic books or draw manga, and if you told me that like I know this comic book artist who in the space of 2 or 3 years went from like barely being able to know how to draw like a human face properly, or barely knowing how to draw like just drawing like a hand like completely wrong, or even drawing like an 8-year-old or 7-year-old would draw, and then taking it to, in 2 or 3 years time, that person has produced like hyper realistic looking stuff where the only reason you know it isn't real is because there's a slight disconnect between the movement of the mouth and the voice or something like that, or the person's, that just little things like that. And it's like that, what do we, the only things I can really say is like what we look into in a few years is, I think, one, we're looking to, it's going to be massively inhibitively expensive to be able to have your own independent PC parts and things like that, simply because these major corporations want to take control of the most powerful means of like producing things like graphics and code and calculations because of this. But you're also going to see AI tools which pull together things like textures and models and retopologizing models and environments and music and things simultaneously to have you like make a quick like Unity thing or a Blender animation which will actually like pull those things together in front of you. I think we'll see that. And the only other thing I can really think of, maybe because my thinking isn't wide enough on this, but just a general sustained improvement on what we've got already, just in terms of like individual image generation, individual video generation, individual like reasoning with the large language models. To overall say is that I'm quite bullish on its ability, and I don't think the people who are calling slop, I don't think they're going to be proved correctly. I think they're going to be found to be like, they can still protest it and they can still say they don't want to use AI. I don't mind them at all. And we'll, after this kind of conclusion, we'll get into that. But I don't think those people who are denying AI or are calling
I think
it
one of the
bad are
things
right.
I would say that I would like to see, actually there's two small things I'd like to see. I'd like to not have, like companies like Microsoft and stuff like that, because obviously there was a massive backlash with Copilot, where it would like take screenshots of your PC and whatever, and that was automatically installed onto your like Windows PC. And even for me, I was there like, well, I don't actually want that because that's a massive invasion of privacy. So I got rid of Copilot. But I'd like to see there being less kind of like intrusion on people and whatnot. But then also I'd like to see it where like maybe companies maybe get a bit less pricey on their subscriptions and stuff like that, because with Digen they're quite good with their prices for like generating like Sora or nano banana like videos and stuff like that. But there are some companies out there that are charging fucking mad prices for like subscriptions and stuff like that for little to nothing. And for that, I think it's a bit of a shit move, because it's kind of like, we've got access to all this lovely stuff. Give us a taste. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually allow us to use it and not allow it that it's fucking super priced, because it's intimidating,
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing, because I wonder if those prices are going up because of this worry of the bubble. And like, they're probably getting loads and loads of grants from governments anyway, but government grants are just our money anyway. So we are still paying one way or the other. But then also, if they're getting paranoid that like, oh shit, we spent like, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, so a company like Notion might spend like $10 million on like a research, program to like find out how they can use AI properly, and then it turns out like everybody's just using the free trial, and then like and not using it enough or something, then they get all antsy and they start charging people more. And so I think to what you're saying is a very good point, is that like if they think they're going to avoid an AI bubble by just having like really harsh pricing penalties for things which you and I could like get from like downloading an open source equivalent, or finding, as you say, like a middleman who, like that website the Digen, then they can just piss off with that. If they try to charge us for inhibitively, just harsh pricing kind of points, then they can screw off, because we'll find alternatives.
Exactly. But no, I think that's quite a good place, to really, unless there's anything else you want to say.
So what I'll just say is, like, that's a good place to end, like, as in terms of like the podcast, in terms of what we understand of AI and what we see of it. But I think it's really important with the nature of this episode is that I think we should make a general stance on how we use AI and our views on it. It just very briefly, in terms of for the sake of the channel. So I'll go ahead and then if you want to come in and maybe correct something you disagree with, or if you want to add something or whatever, what I'd say is, first of all, we use AI just to help with operating the channel in terms of like keywords, SEOs, research and things, but we don't always use it. So you've used like things like Gemini to summarize articles or like events, but then sometimes we do just, like, as you've said, like straight up find articles from other people which are organic. So we decide what we're going to use, and we understand that, like, if we use AI for a summary, we'll either like let people know explicitly, or we just like acknowledge that it's AI and it's not gospel, it's not the final answer. We would look into the source material if we need to be more serious. In terms of like art, is while we're basically broke for this podcast and we don't have like a proper, like, I don't know, like
funding,
subscription service or whatever, like as long as we don't have proper funding, we are going to have elements where we use AI. So for instance, for the Summoned Realms like font, which I've been using for the thumbnails, I used Gemini to help me produce the font, which I could put into Calligrapher to make a custom font file. So that's examples. But also in places we will use things like AI video if we feel like they could be quite complementary to doing like a fun little video or just like a little side screen thing or something. But I do think our priority, like with the channel trailer and like with the theme tune, is to either make things ourselves where it's almost entirely not AI, or we will pay people
as long as the product or the thing that we're making is like 90% or whatever, like made by us. Like, I think we should have that kind of allowance to have AI just kind of freshen up a few things, or like make things, because like with the overlay that we got, the modeling and everything was made by me. That the GameCube and the PS1 and like the fucking the compass and shit like that, and the border and like the the logo as well, and like the name of the podcast on top, like that was all made by me. That was made in Maya. But then some of the textures that I've used for some of the modeling and stuff like that was used to a degree by Gemini just to produce some nice, like effects and whatnot. So it makes the channel, like the overlay, look good. So I think in terms of us starting off, I think we should have that allowance to at least have AI help us for the long run, if that makes sense. Before we then start really getting into it, and then, like it will all mainly, if not most of it, will then all be like actual humanly made stuff. So
as much as we can, or as much as like, because the overall overarching point is that like this is a creative podcast. That's the whole point. We're talking about like creative things, architecture and video games and like design. And so if someone comes onto the podcast or writes a comment saying like, I'm a total like anti-AI, like kind of Luddite kind of character, I don't want to use it at all, we're not going to turn around and go like, you're an idiot or you're ignorant.
No, and you know what? Actually, you know what? We'd love to hear what your thoughts. If you are against AI, we'd love to hear it. Like, I think that's something I'd love to. I mean, as much as I am for AI, I have obviously some stances against it. But if someone is fully against AI, I'd love to hear why. Because it's, do you know what? I don't think people are heard enough about their stance on AI. Like I feel like, especially if people are like, I wouldn't say negative towards it, but are like against AI, I feel like it would be cool to have someone on this podcast and actually discuss why they don't like it, because it's
I completely agree,
because it's really like we can both sit here and go like, oh yeah, we like AI, but sometimes we hate AI, and we've used AI in the past for like certain things. But to really get a perspective on someone who is against it fully, I'd love to see it. Like, I'd love to hear it. Like, it'd be fucking cool as shit.
Let's see if we can get a guest on that, if we can be lucky enough to get that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Nice.
But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been more of a chilled one this time, I feel. It's been more of a chilled one. I think we're still a bit tired from festivities that we had.
Yeah.
But also, welcome to 2026. Lots of stuff happening on the Summer Rounds podcast, but also lots of things to happen as well. So
yeah,
we will see.
I'm just excited.
Yeah, absolutely. This year is definitely going to be the Summer Round year. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you will have a pleasant evening, morning, day, whenever you're watching this or listening to this. I hope the start to 2026 has gone well. If not, I hope it's been peaceful. And we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah.
Right,
see you guys. Have a good one.